What's up, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Wizards Latest. I'm your host and DC sports fan, Ben Robertson, and on this page, we break down all the biggest headlines surrounding the Washington Wizards. So, as always, make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons down below. Drop your comments with any thoughts you might have for me on this video or anything you want to hear me talk about in the future. I really do try to incorporate those ideas into future episodes, so I appreciate all the support here on the page. Keep tuning in every single weekday. Today, I want to talk about what the biggest questions are for this team going into the next NBA season. Of course, opening night being just less than 5 weeks away now at this point. Then we'll move on to one Wizards player garnering interest from other organizations in the league. We'll talk about one free agent that I think the Wizards should have some interest in. And lastly, what is Monumental Basketball? What is the Monumental Sports Group, I should really say, up to? Maybe something interesting. Let's chat about it. Again, guys, thank you for tuning in to Wizards Latest. And like I said, I want to talk about what some of the biggest question marks are really going into this next NBA season. Again, training camp getting closer and closer. Opening night for the Wizards, game number 1 against the Bucks, less than 5 weeks away. For me, really the big one really to start off, I should say here, is the young talent, is the young core on the roster kind of going to take those next steps we are hoping for? Are players like Alex Sarr going to turn, flashes of, really great play into consistent night in, night out production? Really excited to see that. Obviously, Sarr, there, maybe the big one, the number 2 overall pick from last year. And really the guy I will continue to say, if he can hit his ceiling, if he can reach his potential, has the maybe ability to be an X Factor type player in the league with his defensive ability, and then with his athleticism, his fluidity, ability to run the court on offense, all of those things. Again, he has to put it all together, though, and that will kind of continue to say that. Similar thought you could have about Bilal Coulibaly, obviously now dealing with that injury setback. I think you could put Cam Whitmore in that category as well, of course, who we brought in from Houston. He's shown potential over his first 2 years, but now can he turn that again into night in, night out production? I think we're hoping Keyshawn George turns what's been an awesome offseason and a great summer into a really an excellent second year in the NBA. We saw him last year sort of make strides, I thought, down the backstretch of the season. Then I think the next question here is how important and how valuable is holding on to that top 8 pick for the front office? I think the way they've set up this roster, that they're not going to have to worry so much, to be quite honest, about losing it. I just think that there's a couple gaps and a couple just missing pieces that I think were sort of purposely not filled, but despite some other really serious talent, I think, on the roster. I think essentially, again, the goal is kind of to stay bad next year to hold on to that top 8 first round pick. But what happens if the team maybe is just any good to start off the year? Maybe starts winning a few games surprisingly in the first month or two. Do we see the front office make moves to honestly ensure the tank? I think that's going to be really important. The next thing I think is really a key one here is McCollum and Middleton. What's going to happen with those two? Are they going to get moved? Are they guaranteed to get moved at the trade deadline if they can have or get off to nice starts to the season? I think, obviously, I think the team is hoping to get a little bit of capital back for those guys at the deadline. But if they do stay here throughout the year, let's see if I can get through that. The contracts are expiring anyway, so it's okay. And again, the books moving forward after this season are super clean. And the last question I'll give you for this upcoming NBA season, again, with all these topics, would love to hear your thoughts on this down below, is what does Trey Johnson's rookie year look like? How much is he on the court? How much is he able to produce? I love Trey's game. I love his talent, and I think he's going to be an elite NBA scorer. But if he's coming off the bench, what are the numbers going to look like? If Bub Carrington and CJ McCollum are in the starting lineup in the backcourt to begin the year, what do things look like for Trey? Can he work himself into that mix of scoring options with Keyshawn George, Cam Whitmore, all those guys we've sort of talked about? Again, interested to see what his numbers turn out to be. Hope, I'm wrong in expecting him to maybe be a little bit limited. For a while, I was going, man, Trey might be, a rookie of the year candidate just based off his situation. I've started to question that maybe slightly, just because, again, I think there's going to be a bunch of scoring options on the team. And if he's not even in the starting lineup, is he going to get enough minutes and put up the production he needs to early in the season to bring in that award? Doesn't mean I don't think he's going to have some big nights or even a really good rookie campaign. I just don't know if the final numbers are going to be good enough for rookie of the year. But that's it for sort of my big questions going into this next NBA season. I want to move on to a player starting to get some sneaky attention around the league, and that's Justin Champagnie. Checking out the Daily Knicks fan-sided Knicks website, and they prefer a trade with Washington, bringing in a Champagnie over signing more veterans on minimum type deals. The Knicks, of course, just signed Malcolm Brogdon, making him officially a former Wizard. Of course, they brought back Landry Shamet as well, who was with the Wizards a couple of seasons ago. So, again, would add to their growing list now of former Washington players on that roster. And I think they might make the call to the front office, or the reasoning why they would make the call to the Wizards front office is for Justin's perimeter defense and also his ability in catch and shoot, spot up, 3-point looks. Really good in both of those roles. He was actually the team leader in win shares last year, according to Basketball Reference. And he's also on a crazy cheap deal, currently on a 4-year, $9 million contract. What interested me, again, about Fansided's Knicks website, what they threw out there, was that the Knicks could offer Washington back that top 8 protected first round pick that they currently own for next year's draft. And again, while the Wizards would hold on to it regardless if that pick is in the top 8 of the draft order, it would ensure that they don't have to tank to keep it, essentially. And that, like that scenario I threw out a little earlier, if maybe the first month of the year, first 2 months of the year does go a little bit differently than expected, or maybe the team is just slightly better than expected, they're not all of a sudden freaking out and going, "Oh my gosh, we might lose our pick." Now, I think the front office probably wants to be up near the top of the draft regardless, so they might still want to be in the bottom of the standings. But for that reason is why that deal really kind of caught my interest, because honestly, the Knicks don't have a ton of trade assets that are super exciting outside of that. Next thing I want to chat about is Malik Beasley. Of course, remains unsigned here this offseason. Remember, was expected to return to Detroit this summer after a really good year last year in that gambling investigation, which he's now reportedly no longer a target of, but of course derailed his contract talks with Detroit. Was set to sign a 3-year, $42 million deal with the Pistons, of course, before all of that news came out. Why I think Washington might have some interest here. And obviously, the expectation is that Beasley still signs with Detroit on a 1-year deal. But the reason I think that he could be interested in the Wizards, or even they could be interested in him instead of, going to a contending squad, is because maybe, just maybe, Washington could get him back into that 3-year, $40 million type range, which would mean while he probably has to suffer through, maybe a struggling year next year, we have him under contract for the next 2 seasons after that, which is when the team expects to try to be getting back into contention. Now, look, I'm not saying this is likely. It's probably a long shot. Again, still expected that Beasley does return to Detroit, but again, because it would probably have to be on a 1-year deal, and I imagine a lot of the other contending teams in the league are a similar situation, that is just an option for him that I personally, I think I would really like to see. Last thing I want to chat about here today, and it's a little bit of a gear shift from maybe our usual discussions, which are, typically basketball focused. This is a little bit off the court. Ted Leonsis and Monumental Sports have made it clear they are interested in buying more teams here in DC. They have expressed interest in the Nationals as well as DC United. Of course, Nationals ownership with the Learners, will they, won't they sell, has sort of been a discussion for a while now. But I think it's raised an interesting debate whether this would be a good thing or not, to be quite honest. Obviously, Leonsis has run the Caps and the Wizards for a long time now, and I've always thought it's been kind of strange how successful and how well run it seemed like the Washington Capitals in the NHL have been. And then honestly, for many years, just quite the opposite with the Washington Wizards in the NBA. It just never really, made a ton of sense to me how two franchises could be just so distinctly different and have the same leadership. Um, Not sure I would love one person, to be quite honest, or one organization owning four major sports franchises in the nation's capital. However, with the Commanders, and we saw this as well, I do think it makes a difference when you bring in a fan of the team, or not maybe approaching it with the fans mentality, but a person that cares about the team because they're either from the area, grew up cheering for them, whatever it might be. I do think that matters. I think we've seen with Josh Harris, his personal investment in that organization has made all of the difference. Not sure I would love Monumental and Leonsis. I mean, starting to build a little bit of a monopoly here with DC Sports, but again, I would prefer it to be go to a local owner. But I'll keep you posted on everything Wizards related right here on the page. So again, make sure you've hit those like and subscribe buttons down below. Turn on post notifications. Keep dropping your comments down below as well. Appreciate all the support, and thanks for watching another episode of Wizards Latest.